salvation in the water, with a love that flows so deep. Wash over me, wash over me. Grace comes like a wave crashing over me. Grace comes like a wave crashing over and over and over. Grace comes like a wave crashing over me. Grace comes like a wave crashing over and over and over. Crash over and over me.
Good morning, Renew. If I could have everybody stand up. We are so glad you are here. If you are new, we have prayed for you. If you have been here for the last 6 years, we have prayed for you to be here today. Let us pray. Father God, we are so thankful that you are just our Father in heaven, God. God, we just, at this moment, we just pray that our hearts will allow your Spirit to move through us, to help us worship with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our mind. God, we are thankful for who you are. We are thankful for you sending your Son. And today we declare it, like every day, that we are your sons and daughters. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
When all that within me feels dry, this is my prayer and my hunger and need. My God is a God who provides, and this is my prayer in the fire, in weakness or trial or pain. There is a faith through the more worth than gold, so refine me, Lord, through the flame. I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory indeed. This is my prayer in the battle, when triumph is still on its way. And I am a conqueror and co-heir with Christ, so firm on his promise I'll stand. Bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory indeed. All of my life, in every season, you as the God I have a reason to believe. I have a reason to worship. All of my life, in every season, you are still God. I have a reason to sing. I have a reason to worship. All my life,
everyone needs compassion, a love that's never failing. And let mercy fall on me. And everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of a Savior, and the hope of nations. The Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. So take me as you find me, all my fears and failures. Fill my life again. I give my life to follow everything I believe in. And now I surrender.
Prophesy over these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord God to these bones, Behold, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. And I will lay sinews upon you, and will cause flesh to come upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood on their feet, an exceedingly great army.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, and you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. Sing that again. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, and you restore every heart that's been broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath just the voices sing in all the earth. And all shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. One more time. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord.
Luke 22:19 and 20 says, "And he took the bread, and after giving thanks, he broke it, and he gave it to them, saying, 'This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.' And likewise, after they had eaten the cup, saying, 'This cup that is poured out is the new covenant in my blood.'" You know, I really believe that one of the things that Satan uses most often against us is just to make us busy. Just living life. We get so busy that it's easy to get distracted and lose focus on what's really important in our lives. I believe that's why the psalmist said, "Be still and know that I'm God." This time of communion we're about to enter into is our time to be still. It's the time to remember the sacrifice that Jesus made for the forgiveness of our sins. It's the time to remember that bread, that body that was broken for us, and that blood that was spilled for us so that we might be a part of that new covenant with God. We have some communion stations around the room. We've got some in the back, some in the front. We've got a gluten-free here in the front if you need that. I'm going to pray, and then you come to remember, be still and remember all that God has done for you. Let's pray. Lord, we love you. We thank you that you are willing to come to suffer the cross for the forgiveness of our sins. That you are willing to give your body to be broken and your blood to be poured out for us. I just pray that you will help us on a daily basis to be still, know that you are God, to remember what our salvation cost. Be with us in our time here together. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song, 'cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good, good, good. Oh, you are good, 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 good. Oh, 'cause you are good, 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 good. Oh, you are good, good, good. Oh.
You're never gonna let me down. 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 You're never gonna let me down.
'Cause you are good, good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, 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 good. Oh, 'cause you are good, 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 good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good, good. Oh, God, you are good, good. Oh.
Father, it is true. And I pray now, Lord, that no matter where we are in this journey of faith, that we will see that you are there and that you are truly good. Let those words never be just a song, though. Let it be the condition of our heart. And so, Father, I pray now that as we open our eyes to see the wonderful things written in your word, that you will reveal truth to us and that you will motivate us to put those things into action. We praise you for this in Jesus' name. You may have a seat.
Jesus, I just don't trust you.
You don't trust me?
No, I mean, I want to trust you. I just don't.
I have an exercise that I think will really help you.
Oh, okay.
Stand here and face this direction. Now, do you trust me?
No, I just said I don't trust you.
All right, well, this is all part of the exercise.
Oh,
all right?
right, okay.
Whenever I ask you if you trust me, you say, yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Even though I don't.
It's practice.
Okay.
So, do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Now, fall back.
Are you going to catch me?
Don't worry about that part.
Okay, that's the part I'm worried about.
You can do this, okay? Just trust me.
Trust you.
Fall back.
Okay, well, Jesus, I trust
Good.
you. Yes, I do trust you. I'm going to fall
Okay.
back. Woo!
Oh, okay.
That's great.
Let's try this again. Just face this direction and keep your feet planted, all right? Do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Now, fall back.
Okay, I'm going to do it.
All right.
I'm really going to do it. Okay.
Good.
Oh, Jesus, you really caught me! I didn't think you were going to catch me, but you did!
Oh, that was great!
That was great!
You're ready for level 2.
Level 2, here
Yes.
I come, baby! Woo! Whoa!
Okay, hold it.
Oh, you know what? You're too close. You need to move back.
Ah, right.
Okay.
This one's a little bit different, Laura.
Oh, okay.
Stand here,
Uh-huh.
but face me.
Woo! Forward fall. I
Okay.
can do that.
Wait.
Whoa.
Okay, wait for my signal.
Oh, right, the Jesus signal.
Yes, the Jesus signal. Do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you so much.
Good. Fall back.
That's awesome.
It is awesome, especially when you do it.
Seriously?
Of course.
Okay, Jesus, I don't know if you noticed this, but there is nobody over there.
I know it looks that way to you.
Looks that way. It is that way.
You can do this, Laura. Just trust me and fall back.
Jesus, I can't do that.
We can do it together.
I can't.
You can.
I won't.
I can't. I won't. To trust in someone else or to trust in something else, I think maybe even to trust in ourselves at times is very challenging. For me, I want to trust people, and I think generally I do, unless someone gives me a real reason not to. But I want to trust people, but you know as well as I do, people are fickle, and it's challenging to do. But I want to trust them. I want to trust people, and this is good, even when you look at it somewhere like Proverbs 31:11. It gives us this idea of like the heart of a husband being able to trust the wife. And there's something about that in interpersonal relationships where there should be trust. But in human relationships, we cannot hang all of our trust on them. And we certainly cannot allow human relationships to be the basis for the confidence in life because people are people. And it's not just people that we trust and that we think about. I mean, I want to trust that the food that I eat and the medicine that I take and the bridges I drive on are safe. I want to trust that that's the case. I want to trust that the freedoms that we have to do what we're doing right here and other things, I want to trust that those will remain for a lifetime and even for my children and my children's children. I want to trust that. I want to trust even things like the power grid, which they say is vulnerable. But I want to trust that it's not vulnerable because I got to tell you the truth, I love me some air conditioning, you know? I want to trust that my belt is going to do the work that it needs to do today because I also trust gravity at 9.8 meters per second squared. And these two things are in opposition to one another. But so far so good, the belt is winning and that's good for all of us in the room. We trust in all sorts of things. And then there's this church, and I will say that I absolutely trust that the people that call Renew home will invest the time, the talents, and the treasures necessary in order to bring revival to the city. I do believe that. I trust that that's the case. I trust that that's the road that we're on, and that includes, yes, time. It includes people serving, like we have a volunteer luncheon today. It includes those things. It includes even the finances to build a mission station that allows us to heal all sorts of brokenness in the city in the name of Jesus. I trust that that's it. And there are many things to celebrate in that, but there's a lot of work to do also in those areas, in the investment that it takes. But I trust that God is in it, and I trust that God will do it. And I trust in things like what we talked about last week with starting a special needs ministry. I trust that the heart of the people that call Renew home will absolutely and completely love special needs families when they come in the droves. We'll love them, and that we are positioned perfectly to have that kind of ministry to people that maybe have never felt welcome in a place like this. Just as I trust that Renew people will love on people no matter what color their skin is or their hair or whatever, that we will love those people so that they see who Jesus is. But no matter what, our ultimate trust, and for me, my ultimate trust must be in the Lord. It must be in who God is and what he has said. And that is, I want to trust in the Lord in every circumstance, in everything, in every moment, with every heartbeat and breath. I want to be able to trust the Lord in the good times and the bad, in plenty or in want, in sickness or in health, till death do us part. And in reality, outside of a marriage vow kind of thing, I want to be able to trust in the Lord until death brings us face to face. Because death doesn't separate us. Death allows my faith to become sight. And I want trust like that will continue on until that last breath is taken. I do not want my trust to be based on my own intellect or my education or a piece of paper that hangs on the wall. I do not want my trust to be based on how good of a problem solver I am or I'm not, or based on my abilities to lead. I don't want my trust to be based on those things. I don't want my trust to be based on a bank account and make decisions based on that, whether or not the account is fat or skinny or empty as can be. I don't want to put my trust in those earthly, physical things. I want my trust to be focused on the Lord because He is truly the only thing that we can really trust in. He is really the only thing that we can fully understand what trustworthiness looks like all the time and in every way. And so the question for you then is, in what or whom do you place your trust? Is it in temporary things or eternal things? Physical or spiritual? Things that can be stolen, that will rot, that will burn, or things that will last forever, that are indestructible, invincible, immutable? Do we put ourselves in a position where we are focused on trusting things that are constantly changing, like everything around us? Or will we put our trust in something that is sure and steadfast and steady? We all get to make these choices, and so maybe it's a good time we ask, what is trust anyway? If we were to define it out of a dictionary, we would simply see that trust is to rely on it, to rely on something. If I trust it, I rely on it, I depend on it. But I will tell you, I think that's a lame and weak definition of trust. That we have to take it beyond just relying and depending, because we rely and depend on things all the time. For instance, you are depending on that chair to hold you up. But when we begin to believe something greater, when we begin to talk about the trust in the Lord or trust in storming the gates of hell, there's got to be more than trust we put in a chair. It's got to be more than just something that we rely on or depend on. And I would say that trust is something that we are completely 100% confident in, that we absolutely know that we know that we know this is the case, and I feel secure in it and safe in it. I think within the idea of trust, there must be a sense of boldness, a surety in it, and then action. Trust isn't just mental assent. It's not just an idea. Trust is, I know this is the case, and therefore I will act. Therefore I will move. Therefore I will do based on the things that I know. Action. And this is fundamental to the Christian life. Something that we are always called to trust. Trust in the Lord. So with that in mind, what does the Bible say? Well, in the Old Testament, and this is the First Testament, there's two parts of our Bible, the Old and the New, the first or the second. When we go back to the original, the Old Testament, the beginning of the story for us, we see this message over and over. And what we see consistently and constantly throughout the entire Old Testament is that people are encouraged to put their trust in the Lord. Here are just a couple of examples. Trust in Him at all times. Stop there. This does not mean trust in Him when everything is smooth only, but trust in Him at all times, which would mean trust in Him when times are great and when times are terrible. And we all have terrible times. Yes? We all have them. And the commission to us is not just to trust Him when things are going smooth or when things are going my way, but to trust Him even when things aren't going my way. And even when I can't see the end of the road, it is to trust Him at all times in everything. And that's what this psalmist tells us in Psalm 62:8. Trust in Him at all times. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our hiding place, our refuge, a place that we can run and be safe in those times of trial or goodness. We continue, you who fear Him, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. Think about that imagery, a shield. If you're under attack, the right place to be is under a shield. And we can trust that God is that for us. That's what the psalmist says in 115:11. Or how about those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which cannot be shaken. Everything else in our life can be shaken pretty easy, I would say. Your bank account can get shaken fast. Just takes one bill you weren't expecting. All kinds of things. Your health can get shaken just like that. Relationships can get shaken just like that. But those who trust in the Lord are like a mountain. They cannot be shaken. They cannot be crumbled. It will endure forever. Psalm 125:1. In the New Testament, then, we get the same kind of picture, although I think it's interesting, as Jesus is talking to the disciples around him, he really never says, hey, it would be a good idea to trust God. In fact, what he really says is, I demand it. That Jesus demands that we trust in the Lord, that we put our trust in him. And that's what John 14:1 says, trust in God and trust in me. Understand this, trust was not some outer edge, boundary layer kind of thought that Jesus had for his people. It's not a borderline topic. It is that trust is right in the center of everything Jesus talks about and intends for his people. That trust is at the very moment that we have to understand who Jesus really is. It is about trust. And Jesus makes it clear all throughout Scripture. And so, because of that, because of the essential nature of trust for people who call on the name of the Lord, we've got to be careful where we put our trust. Because I'll tell you, I think we put it in all kinds of things that aren't him. Jeremiah, in fact, warns us about such a thing. Jeremiah 17, verses 5 and verse 7. Cursed is the one who trusts in man. That's pretty strong language. Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who depends on flesh for his strength, and whose heart turns away from the Lord. What's it saying? It's saying this, that what we end up getting when we put all of our trust in what people can provide, whether it's someone else or even ourselves, it doesn't work. It pulls us further from the Lord instead of to him. But instead, our heart needs to be to the Lord and for the Lord, which means that our trust cannot be in all of the stuff, in all the temporal things that we see, but instead, regardless of our circumstances, good or bad, our trust is in him and ultimately in him alone. But let me ask, how many times, honestly, how many times do you think you and I put myself in this category, this is certainly not just a message for you. I've had to chew on this all week long. I will tell you and ask you, how many times have you and I traded in our trust for God for a cheap counterfeit? Something that we thought would bring us peace or comfort, something that we thought would keep us from shaking, that would solve a momentary dilemma. But it wasn't the Lord, it was something we could manipulate and control. How many times have you and I done that? Certainly more than once. Hundreds of times? Thousands of times that we've trusted in other things. But our call from the Lord is to trust in him and him alone. This is the essence of trust because it's a recognition of who God is and who we are. It's a recognition of where I am in this whole big picture and who God is in the middle of the big picture of life, however many years that we get to live. And we get this picture all throughout Scripture with trouble in that area. Like those who are wealthy, they tend to, or they're at least at risk of, putting their trust in what their money can do, of how my money can provide for all of my needs. I don't really need the Lord. As long as I got money in the bank, I'm in good shape. I've heard it from so many people. I wish God would just give me a few $1,000, then I would be faithful. No, it's probably not true. Because if I'm not faithful with a little, I probably won't be faithful with much. There will be another thing that will take precedence in that. But those who are wealthy tend to trust in their ability to control with money. Proverbs 11:28 tells us that. Those who are politically powerful tend to be geared towards relying on their ability to make stuff happen with people. I can manipulate something. I have the right people that I can call and make something happen. I don't have to depend on the Lord. I don't have to trust him. I can trust in my network. Of course, Psalm 146:3 tells us that. Those who are strong sometimes tend to think that they can trust in their ability to make things happen. Whether that's individually or even a country, militarily or whatever, that my strength will get me through. No one can take me on. I'm strong enough and powerful enough to make whatever happen. I don't really need the Lord to do it. I can trust in my strength. Or intelligent people struggle, I think, at times with their ability to intellectualize through things or problem solve through things or think through something and thinking that their understanding and their intellectual prowess will get them through. I don't need the Lord. I've got this. I've got it figured out. And of course, Proverbs 3 and Proverbs 28 talk about that very thing. But it is only when you and I recognize that these things like money and power and strength and brilliance or whatever are insufficient. It's only when we realize those are insufficient that we can truly begin to get past ourselves, to get past our desire and ability to control and to see and to make decisions only on what I can handle, only on what I can deal with, instead of trusting the Lord. To trust God rather than any earthly thing is to express this confidence in his character, to acknowledge that we know who he is and what he's promised, that we know who he is and that he is more reliable than anything else we can possess or attain, that he is more reliable. One of the challenges, though, is he often does things we don't like. And so we're battling. Do I trust him, even though he wants to do it this way? Or will I trust myself and manipulate it to push it the direction I want to go? And I think this is a battle most of us face, maybe on a daily basis. But it's easier said than done to say we just put our trust in the Lord and we walk off. To say I'm going to trust him no matter what, because to trust him fully means I'm going to choose not to try and control every situation. To trust him fully means I'm going to be open to what God can do, wants to do, and will do, no matter the outcome. To trust him fully means to put myself in his hands and to live a life of surrender. And to say, God, I will go anywhere you want me to go. I will do anything you want me to do. I will say anything you want me to say. No matter the outcome, I'm all yours. And that is hard for many of us, if not the hardest thing. But let me tell you, God is trustworthy. And you can trust him for it, even if your personal experiences up to this point tell you a different story. Maybe some of your experiences, maybe even right now, sitting in this room, in these chairs, and you're thinking, I haven't been able to trust him. No, it's not that. It's because often we choose not to, because like this video, it's not that we can't. We often just say, I'm not going to. I want it my way. I'm going to do it my way, which means I'm not going to trust his way. But he is trustworthy. And by the way, I think there might be some confusion over how faith and trust work together, because they do. Now, I can't tell you there's this beautiful, clear line between faith and trust. In fact, I don't think they're supposed to be. They intertwine and interweave with one another, and they work together for sure, because faith is accepting and believing that the things God has told us are true. It is looking in here, and by faith, which comes from hearing and hearing from the Word of God, as my faith grows, it is a faith that accepts what he says is right. That no matter what he says, I believe it because he's revealed this truth to us. That's faith. Trust, then, is putting it into action. Trust is what we do because of the faith that we have. Trust is willing to step back and fall backward if he calls us to, even though we don't see how he's going to catch us. Trust is, I know who you are, and you are trustworthy, Lord. And therefore, if you say to go, I will go, even if I don't see how it ends. Even if I'm not sure where the story takes me, trusting is believing in the promises of God and then put them into motion, to act on those things. And I think this is part of the story of Hebrews chapter 11. Now in Hebrews 11, we've talked about it several times, at least in passing, we've talked about Hebrews 11. We often define it as the Hall of Fame of Faith, and I'm not sure that's a great example, because I think part of the problem with calling it the Hall of Fame of Faith is we think, well, we could never live in those shoes. We could never walk in that pathway, but that's not true. We're called to these things. But the Hall of Fame of Faith, you have the story of faith, but also stories of trust all the way through. Here's what I mean. For Noah, it took faith to write down the instructions, to believe that what God was saying, that, by the way, I'm going to have you build this giant boat because I'm bringing an end to what's been going on. It's one thing to believe that when God says it, I'm going to believe it. It's another to pick up a hammer and start building a boat. It takes radical trust to say, I hear what you say and I will do it, even though it doesn't make any sense because this boat was a long way away from any kind of water at all. And it took him 100 years to build it. Can you imagine that kind of faith and that kind of trust that it took to continue to build the boat? How many people ridiculed him for that? I don't know. The Bible doesn't say, but I can't imagine the ridicule that must have come. But he believed what God said, and he picked up a hammer and began to build the boat. That takes radical trust. Or for Abraham, it took faith to be able to listen to God say, I need you to go, and I'm not telling you where you're going to end up. You'll know when you get there, basically. I'll reveal it to you, but I need you to pack things up and go to a place that I'm not going to tell you where that is yet. That takes faith. It takes radical trust to pack your bags and start walking. They go together. But because of what we believe to be true about God, we're willing to step out and put it into motion. Or it took faith for David to believe that he could kill the giant, David, the giant slayer. It had to take faith to believe that God was more powerful than this heathen, terrible giant that was spewing hate and disgusting things to the God that he loved. But it took radical trust to go pick up 5 smooth stones and to run down into the valley of Elah and face the giant. It took radical trust. It took faith for Joshua to surround a city ready for battle and to believe that what God said would be true, that he would put Jericho into his hands. But it took radical trust to march around the city. And when the time was right, to blow those trumpets and to scream and to see the walls come tumbling down without battering rams or weapons. It took faith to come to Jesus as a royal officer came to Jesus to petition Jesus for the life of his son that was dying. But it took radical trust to go back home when Jesus said, it's done. And he went back. It took faith for Peter to ask Jesus to command him to get out of the boat when they saw Jesus walking on the water toward them. That's what happens. Peter asked Jesus, tell me to come out and I will. It took faith to do that, but it took radical trust to put his leg up over the side of the boat and walk on that water. To trust that Jesus had him, that he wouldn't sink. Radical trust moves us to act. Radical trust moves us to do, to try, to build, to expand. Radical trust helps us to say no to sin and yes to righteousness. Radical trust moves us to join, to speak out, to move forward, to accomplish things and to dream beyond our means, beyond the things that we can see and experience in the flesh. Radical trust helps us to dream about bigger things, not for our own glory, but for his. Radical trust allows us to say, we're going to expand this building, a mission station. Radical trust says, let's start a school. Radical trust says, let's have an after-school program where hundreds and hundreds of kids will come instead of running the streets and getting in trouble. And while they're here, we teach them about Jesus. Radical trust says that we'll open a dental and medical clinic and a counseling clinic to heal brokenness in the city. Radical trust says that we'll have an automotive ministry so that we can break the cycle of poverty in the city. Radical trust says that we'll start a special needs ministry, one that will change the landscape of the city. And then it will continue on from there. Radical trust says we're willing to be witnesses to our neighbors, our friends, our family, to the waitress that you'll see later. Radical trust says that we will be a witness to them and to let them go to hell only over our dead bodies with our arms wrapped around their legs. That takes radical trust. It takes radical trust to ask God for 100 new families and thousands of baptisms. Radical trust is necessary in all of these areas to put faith into action and to do it without the clarity that we so desperately seek as people. I will tell you, there are no guarantees in this life other than death and taxes. That's what they say, right? There's no guarantee. No guarantee that everything that we talk about will work. We want guarantees, though. I will tell you, in this church planting life that we've been in now for many years, that when we first started telling our friends we're going to move to Cabot, Arkansas and plant a church, the question I got all the time, and the question that I got when we first got on the ground, the question I have been asked along the way, and the question I still get asked now is, how do you know it's going to work? How do you know that you're not going to fail? How do you know that it's going to be what you think it's going to be? Here's the answer. I don't. I don't know. Never have. But God has asked us to trust Him. And there are times in our lives that we do fail. But we trust Him anyway. Clarity, although beautiful, and it's wonderful when we receive it. And there have been a few times in my life where God has made something so amazingly clear, you just couldn't deny it if you tried to. But I will tell you, most of the times in my life, it has not been that clear. It's been more like, okay, God, I'm going to jump off this building. I sure hope you'll teach me how to fly on the way down. That's radical trust. That's not just for pastors. It's for the life that is devoted to the Lord to say, I don't have to have the guarantee of success. I mean, you look at Paul, for instance. I would guess that the Apostle Paul, who writes most of the New Testament, he was in tune with the Lord. But he gets shipwrecked and beaten and bit by snakes. And you would think in our flesh, that's failure. But it's not. It's a devotion to the Lord that no matter what comes, I'm going to trust Him. I'm going to trust Him. And that His ways and His thoughts are higher and better than mine. Isaiah 55, 8, and 9 tells us that. But we still want clarity. But here's the thing. I've got this thing that always runs through my head, and it's based on a book that I read a long time ago called Ruthless Trust by a guy named Brennan Manning. And he tells a story of this brilliant ethicist by the name of John Kavanaugh, who went to work for 3 months in Calcutta, in the House of the Dying with Mother Teresa. He'd accomplished everything in his life that he wanted to accomplish, and he was seeking clarity on what to do for the rest of his life. And so he gets to the House of the Dying with Mother Teresa, and he says to her on the first morning, or she says to him on the first morning, he's there, what can I do for you? And Kavanaugh basically responds by saying, I need you to pray for me. And she says, okay, what do you want me to pray for? And he asked her to pray that he would have clarity in what to do with the rest of his life. Let me ask you for a moment, have any of you ever prayed for clarity? Anybody? Has anyone here ever prayed for clarity? And so he asked Mother Teresa to pray for clarity, and she looked at him and she said, no. Now this would sort of be like you coming up to me on Sunday and going, hey, Pastor, I've got this thing. Would you pray for me? And I look you straight in the eyes and go, no. That wouldn't feel great, probably. But that's what she told him. She said, no, I'm not going to pray for you to have clarity. And when he hears this, he basically responds with, you've always had clarity in your life. Why wouldn't you want me to have clarity? And her response was, I have never had clarity. What I have always had was trust. And I will pray that you will trust the Lord. I got to be honest and tell you, I crave clarity. I love clarity. But clarity is a crutch. Clarity, in other words, to say, God, I see that hill over there, and I know you've told me to take that hill. But I'm going to wait until you make it a little more clear. What that really is that we want clarity to eliminate the risk of trusting God. But it becomes a crutch. And we sit back and we do nothing in order to wait for clarity. And let me just tell you, I think part of God's expectation is that we will trust him regardless of the clarity. That doesn't mean that everything you do in the name of the Lord will go the way that you want it to. It won't. But that we would trust him and put ourselves in his hand to say, I will go where you want me to go. And so why is this so important to us? Well, Proverbs 3:5 is the classic verse on trust. And it really sums up everything else in the Bible about it. It says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. What does that say to us? Well, it's the Lord whom we put our trust, not our bank account, not my ability to manipulate it and make it the way I want it to be, not my intelligence or my plans. He and he alone is trustworthy, and therefore we put our trust in him. His word is trustworthy. Psalm 93 tells us that. Psalm 111 tells us that. We get that in Titus and other places. And because of God's nature, we're able to trust him with our whole heart, not a divided heart. A divided heart is so dangerous, where I go, God, I want to trust you with these 3 or 4 things, but I'm going to control this because I'm not sure you're going to do this the way I want. So I'll trust you with that. I got this. I'll tag you in if I need help. That is not at all what Jesus had in mind for us. Not to trust him with a divided heart, but to trust him with our whole heart, with all of us, committing every aspect of my life to him because of his promises. And because we know that his promises are true, I can do that. Even though I want to trust in myself, I want to trust in the ability to manipulate it and control it, to make it the outcome the way that I want it. But I cannot trust my own understanding. I cannot trust my own wisdom because those things are tainted by my sin nature and often become inherently selfish. Trusting in ourselves is dangerous. Trusting in my ability to make the outcome the way that I want it in everything is like walking confidently across a bridge over a 1,000-foot cavern, and the rungs of the bridge are rotten through and through. Disaster is imminent and will inevitably follow. Friends, here's the thing. God is in this. God is in this, and for those of you that believe and have put your faith in Christ, which isn't everybody in the room, and if you're just still curious and you're seeking, you're in the right place. But those that have put their faith in the Lord, he's not only in this, he's in you. This is the promise of the Holy Spirit for those who believe, that he places a part of himself in you to lead and guide and comfort. And because of that, let me tell you, I'm not afraid to fail. I am afraid of not trying, though. And if we fail fast, and we recover faster. We go, that didn't work, but we'll continue on. But the fear of failure for so many is crippling. It's crippling. And it will keep us individually, and the fear of failure will keep us as a church collectively from accomplishing the mission that God has set before you in your life, and for God that he's placed in us collectively. And that's what the devil wants. He is the author of that kind of fear. The fear that cripples, paralysis by analysis, where I think about it over and over and over to the point that I'm paralyzed and I no longer can trust him because I've thought of all the ways it could go wrong. And it's better to not try than to try and fail. That's what the world tells you. It's a lie. I'm willing to step out and not be afraid to fail, but instead to be afraid of apathy, to be afraid of playing it safe. I don't want to play it safe and make decisions based on only what I can control and only what I can see. I want to trust the Lord that he can do whatever he wants to do, as long as I'm willing to say, yes, Lord, here I am, send me. This kind of trust says, I don't want to just walk on the water. I want to dance on the water with Jesus. I want to trust then that if I get focused on the waves and the storms around me and I take my eyes off of him and focus on the trouble, if I begin to sink, he'll catch me and he'll rescue me and save me from the storm. I trust him for that too. And so what do we do with all this? Where do we take this? Well, part of it is, if you don't trust the Lord, it's time to say, I want to trust him. It really does begin with faith. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. You have heard the truth. And to put your faith in the Lord, to say, I want to follow you. I want you to lead my life. And then to grow in trust where you say, Father, I'm going to do what you call me to do because I believe your promises are true. And that at the end, walking in your steps means I will have the promise of the inheritance of life forever that can never perish, spoil, or fade, 1 Peter 1:4. And so I encourage you to say, yes, Lord, I want to. See what it is you had to say, because it's hard to have trust if you don't know what the promises are. But to see what God has to say, to believe that that's true, despite your story in the past, despite your circumstances, and say, I will trust you for it. And when you say I should go, I will go. And spend time with other people that think like that. And you encourage each other. And because when you get weak, you need someone alongside that can say, let's do this. We're doing it together. And when you are strong and they are weak, we do the same. This is what part of the church is for, to encourage one another as we see the day approaching, when all of this is done and faith becomes sight. Read the Psalms. The Psalms are full of the stories of trust for David and others that are experiencing trials and tribulations of every kind. And they look around them and they look at the trials that are going on, the heartache, the terribleness of this earth, the hatred of people, and they cry out to the Lord in their brokenness and their hurt. But in the end, the story is, but I will still trust you. Despite the pain, despite the circumstances that reveal to us pain is coming and trials are facing us, I will trust the Lord. And just like David, when we get knocked around in this life or stumble or fail, we as the children of the Lord know that he is trustworthy and that we can believe and that we can walk in faith every day. So let me ask you, in what or whom will you place your trust? What is God asking you to trust him for or trust him with? Maybe it is your bank account. Maybe it is your finances or giving. Maybe it is in serving. Maybe it is in seeking to quit delaying the commitment to follow the Lord when he's been drawing you and calling to you. Some of you in this room, maybe for years. Maybe it is to trust him in sharing the good news with a friend or a neighbor or family member. Maybe it is to trust you in just living your life for him every day and to quit just being a Sunday morning Christian. but to walk the walk every day. Maybe it is to trust him, to commit your life to him, to be baptized, to die to yourself and live for him, to give up the fleshly life, the things that you try to control and hold on to. Maybe it's to say, I will trust you regardless of what I see and regardless of how this may go. I will trust in the Lord. It is time to trust in him with your whole heart, not a divided one. It is time to trust him with all of you and refuse to put your trust in only what you can see and comprehend. It's time. I love this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of my favorites, that my beautiful wife reminded me of this morning. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "All that I have seen teaches me to trust the Creator for all that I have not seen." He is trustworthy in a million ways. And I can trust him for what the future looks like. I can trust him for what the next minute looks like. I can trust him because he and he alone is really trustworthy. And so because of that, because we have a God that is fully trustworthy, I want to invite you to stand up and to respond, to pray, to say, God, I want to trust you. I trust you, but help me to trust you more. I believe, but help me to believe more. I have faith, but increase my faith. And to believe that his promises are true, that life with him forever awaits. And because of that kind of hope, I can trust him now too. And let our response be worship, a declaration that he and he alone is worthy of our praise. So let's stand and let's respond that way together.
Lord, I come, draw me closer, hear my prayer. I surrender to you. Every day you sustain me, make a way. I surrender to you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you. 'Cause you're all I need. 'Cause you're all I need. All I ask is all you ask of. Everything is what I bring to you. And I will trust in you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you. Because you're all I need. I will trust in you. I will trust in you. Oh God, I trust in you. Because you're all I need. Because you're all I need. Because you're all I need.
Father, let that be the prayer of every one that can hear the sound of my voice this morning. whether it's here in this room or across the ocean, or 20 years from now when someone finds an old recording of today. Let your power be evident. Let our faith grow, believing that your promises are true and that we will trust in you. Let it be a song that we sing every day out of an overflow of our heart's desire to trust you. We praise you for this in Jesus' name. Amen. You can have a seat. Well, we're going to take up an offering, and then we have a couple of quick announcements for you and get you out of here. But first, we have a This Is Why I Give video.
My name is Ryan Caldwell, and this is my wife, Charla, and we are going to tell you why we give.
We haven't always given well. We haven't always given obediently. For a long time, we really didn't give much at all.
We gave more, here comes the plate, what's in my pocket, or what's in my purse.
Yeah.
And it was not anywhere close to a tithe.
And it certainly wasn't sacrificial. Really what happened to us is that we reached a point where, for whatever, for financial reasons, we had an injury and a layoff, and we got to a point where we literally had nothing. And we were forced at that time to depend on God. And He came through in such an amazing way. It's not really even describable in words, but that was the people that helped us through that time really talked a lot about the obedience of giving and how we were supposed to be giving back according to what God has commanded us to do. A couple years ago, we took the Financial Peace University course here at Renew, and that opened our eyes a lot. And that class taught us to trust God with our money. We already trusted Him with everything else in our lives, our kids, our home, our livelihood, but we weren't trusting Him with our money. It doesn't even make any sense. So we made a conscious change, and we began to tithe on everything that came in, regardless of whether we could afford it that week or not. And the most amazing thing happened, we didn't go in the negative. God sometimes shows you things in really strong ways, and He has showed us that trusting Him with our money is a big deal. It is about Him being Lord. It is about
us
obeying.
Father, thank you for a testimony like that. And I pray that it will be our testimony, every one of us, that we can trust you in every area of our life, including this one, and that we will trust you for it. And we as a church will trust you that you will provide everything we need to do the work that you've called us to, a mission station. But we know there's work to do, and it involves all of us. And I pray that you will help us with that, and that we will see where you're leading, and that we will follow you. And I pray that you will bless us with the finances to accomplish the task, and for workers in the harvest, and for joy in the giving. We praise you for what you're doing here in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, while they come through and take up an offering, we've got a couple of fast things.
Really fast. We're going to talk really fast.
Really fast.
Like really fast.
So we're not going to tell any jokes.
Well, I'm not telling jokes. Okay, so I always like to celebrate stuff that God's doing here because it gives you a chance to see what's happening. So a really fun story is this week we have somebody who works here who, no, I'm lying. I messed this up last time. There's somebody who goes to church here who works for Cisco in Little Rock. And whenever he gets these extra things, that we get to have the donations and we get to use them to feed people. So we had him call. He's like, I got a ton of cheese. Like somebody ordered some shredded cheese and it was the wrong thing that they ordered. So I've got it if you want to come pick it up. So of course I was like, yeah, because what am I going to do with a ton of cheese? Like a ton of cheese. So I go and pick it up and I bring it in and I call Union Rescue Mission. If you don't know about them, just go check them out later. Normally our food goes to feed everybody local here. We keep it in our community and we get to help with a women's shelter here in our community and our guests and our clients that work here, that live here. I can't go fast.
You're okay. You're doing great.
So,
Keep it up.
But we do partner with Union Rescue Mission because they have the Nehemiah House and the Dorcas House. They do a Christian rehab and they feed homeless, and it's a beautiful ministry. And they feed hundreds of people. So I call Union Rescue Mission, right? I was like, hey, I've got some stuff. They didn't ask me what it was. And they come up here, they pull up, and I was like, hey, I've got these eggs, I've got these onions, and I've got this cheese. And I'm not even kidding you. This is what the guy says. Scotty says, we have been praying for cheese.
Now I got to stop. We have to sit. I'm just curious, how many in the room have ever prayed for cheese?
I mean, like, I pray for cheese all the time. I love cheese.
Okay, well, there you go. Well,
No, but I'm like, Scotty, for real. He's like, no, we don't ever get cheese donations. And I've got all this dough that was donated, and I have all this pizza sauce that was donated, and it's been sitting in the freezer. We haven't been able to use it because nobody's given us cheese. So now we can feed hundreds of people pizza. And I just thought that was really fun because, thanks, God, because that was really fun. So
that's good.
I celebrate
God.
cheese this week.
The only other thing we're going to celebrate right now, real fast, is that summer camp's coming up very soon, and a week after next. And so we had some goals for how many kids were going to be at camp this year. And so we had kind of a set goal that we sort of had to get there, and then we had a sort of a stretch goal, and the stretch goal's been exceeded. And so that's exciting. Lots of kids coming to camp. That's really good. We need to get you a headset so you can clap and talk at the same time. That's good. Anyway, so if you haven't signed up your kids, though, for camp, we need you to do it today. I even did it, and the people that know me, I usually do it at the day of camp. I even signed up my children and paid online last week. I got it done. Hallelujah. So please make sure you get them signed up, renewcabot.org. It'll just take you a few minutes. You can sign them up, pay right there. It's super fast and easy.
You can still bring yarn. Thank you for everybody who's already brought yarn. You can still bring yarn and put it in that box for donations because it's for a craft.
Right.
And then we have some people who you probably know their faces by now. It's Ryan Davenport, who's the youth minister here, and then Dawn Powers, who does just about everything else. So she does the crew team, and she is the director for the daycare here at Renew. So they're going to tell you a little bit about the Renew Crew.
Yeah, we just wanted to kind of focus. It's kind of our first impressions. We've renamed it to the Renew Crew, and that kind of just what we're doing is we're looking for people that are Christ-like, ready, equipped, and willing to help churchgoers experience what it means to be a family. So from the moment they pull in the parking lot to the moment they leave, they want to have an experience of what it is like to be here at home at Renew. And so we have different jobs, and so we're going to kind of explain what that is, and while we're recruiting for volunteers, so Dawn's going to kind of take care of that.
And basically what you'll do is just welcome people. We have people that are in the sanctuary that are welcoming in here. You'll hold a door. You'll smile. It's the easiest way to get connected here at Renew if you're not connected right now, because all we need you to do is show up 30 minutes early before church service, which you're coming anyways, and basically do things like this.
So we have a couple skills that, so if you're a people person and you're like, I don't really like to talk to people, you can do this. All right, then we have the door opening motion. Okay, then we like you to smile. All right, now if you're in the parking lot and you don't really, this is where the people that don't want to talk to anybody, you can just do like this. All right, that's what we really need. So there's really simple skills. The smile and the wave, and then the... So with the new building opening up, we're going to have a lot of responsibilities. We're going to need people to work in the well. We're going to need to work, doors and have all these responsibilities. So we're looking for some volunteers to be a part of a wonderful team we already have. Our team is rocking and rolling, and they do some really good stuff, but we need more people. We need some people that can handle the sun, and they can be out there in some beautiful yellow vests going.
And a benefit of this group is you get this handy-dandy lanyard.
You get to wear a lanyard.
Lanyards.
Yes.
Nope.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank
3
you
people
so much.
clap.
Okay.
All right, last thing real quick. We need to finish up.
Okay.
So in about 15 minutes, we're going to have a volunteer luncheon right here. And so if you are currently volunteering, we would love for you to stay. We do need you to get your kids out of kid care, and then we'll have a moment where you can check them back in. Don't leave them back there, but we do need to have you get those kids. So if you're currently volunteering or you're even curious about volunteering, we want you to stay. We've got a pretty quick process we're going to walk through, but we're going to have lunch for you and some training time that's important for everybody, and then an opportunity to check out some different ministries, get some training and things like that. So
it's like a ministry fair. It's like a
little bit of a serving fair, yeah. So
serving fair.
Yeah.
That was better.
Mission fair? I don't know. Yes, it works. Whatever. So come. That's the answer. So here's what I need you to do. As soon as I finish praying, if you got to pick up kids, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we need the chairs scooched to the side. We've got round tables in this room right here. We need them spread out all throughout here. And maybe a couple people to run next door. There's some more round tables in there. Probably need 10 tables. What do you think, 10?
I think 10 tables.
Let's go with 10 and chairs around those. And then we'll hit lunch here in about 15 minutes. And hopefully you'll stay. So.
This is what, never mind. Okay, yes.
All right, I love you. I'm thankful for you. Let's pray together. God, thank you for giving us today and this opportunity to come together and to experience the things that we've experienced today. Help us to trust you more and more every day with everything, every part of our lives, with our whole heart, and to never have a divided heart, but to trust you because you are trustworthy. Help us to grow in that and to learn and to see where you're working and to join you in it. We praise you for the work you've done and the work that you're still yet to do. It's in the name of Jesus that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Have a good week if you're not second.
Well, if I come across a little bit distant, it's just because I am. Things just seem to feel a little